As Tom Thibodeau's having dinner out in Chicago in Tao with Julius Randle, with Evan Fournier, with Kevin Walker, with Taj Gibson, Emmanuel Quickly, amongst the Knicks that were there.
It's a good table.
You know, after that win last night in which the Knicks held on for dear life in Chicago against the Bulls, nearly blowing a 13-point lead with under 3 minutes to go, and Randle bricking free throws, you know, with under 10 seconds to go in regulation, and you get the great D by R.J. Barrett late on DeMar DeRozan to force the air ball, and the Knicks hold on and win that game by a point last night, Maggie. I'll say this. For Julius Randle, as he's eating last night and celebrating a victory as the Knicks are 4-1, what he's got to say to himself as he looks around that table, obviously he's got the coach in Thibodeau that's going to push him. Obviously he's completely changed the narrative of what he is as a player here in the NBA. The other thing for Julius Randle is this. He doesn't have to be the guy offensively, night in, night out, for this Knicks team to win. He doesn't have to be the guy offensively, night in, night out, for the Knicks to win.
Then Tibbs should stop running ISO plays
with
for him.
Kemba Walker doing what he's doing, hitting 5 threes the last 2 games. I'm not telling you he's still not the guy and still not the leader of this team, but you've got Barrett, who had a good offensive night last night. You've got Fournier, who had a tremendous overtimes against the Boston Celtics, especially that first one. I mentioned Kemba. Derrick Rose can chip in offensively. We've seen, when healthy, Mitchell Robinson this year on the court. He's shooting at a high percentage, being Mr. Dunk. We know about Obi Toppin being kind of instant energy coming off the bench for this team. That, to me, is the biggest difference this year as compared to a year ago when we looked at this Knicks team and we're hoping and praying that they'd hit some threes. And when they did, the Knicks won a lot of games and where they were defensively. And I get end-of-game situations, whether it be fourth quarter Orlando, whether it be fourth quarter against Boston, opening night at Madison Square Garden, whether it be last night in Chicago where they had that game at measure.
Right.
And they were in complete command of that game until they started to take the air out of the basketball and got a little bit too conservative and started turn the basketball over, and they also started missing shots left and right, including Julius Randle at the free throw line. But Randle doesn't have to be the guy offensively. Last night he had 16 boards. He had 9 assists. He nearly had a triple-double. I'm not telling you that Julius Randle's not the best player on the team. I'm just telling you he can look around that room and look around that table at Tao last night and look around on the floor and say, I can trust Evan Fournier. I can trust Kemba Walker. On any given night, maybe I could trust an R.J. Barrett. I can trust a Derrick Rose. There are other guys that can alleviate some of the offensive stress on Julius Randle night in, night out. Even though he's the best player on the team, offensively, he doesn't have to be the best guy on any given night for the Knicks still to win.
Yeah, I can't get there yet. You got guys who can hit shots for sure. Unfortunately, Fournier in the second half wasn't one of them. He went 1 for 7 with 2 points, 0 for 3 from 3 in the second half last night. Kemba was nice yesterday in putting together good back-to-back games, but I can't get there because if Julius Randle doesn't have the off night he does offensively last night, I don't think that game you're sweating out the way you did. And I think the message has to go to Thibodeau. It's not Julius Randle if you're having an off night, you can pass up the ball. It's Tom Thibodeau. If Julius Randle is having an off night shooting the ball, stop calling ISO plays for him. Listen, you rather learn the lesson off of a win than learn it off of a loss, for sure. But the way that game became down to the wire and one where the Knicks are relying on, DeMar DeRozan airball to walk out of there with a victory when they were up, as you said, 13 with 3 minutes left to go in the game, they can't be feeling that good about it. You feel good because you got a win and the Knicks are winning, and that's awesome. 4-1, amazing. But Julius has to be better with his shot selection, or else these games are not going to – that's not going to be fun. His shot selection just – has to be leading the way for the Knicks moves. Has to be, because you look at the loss against Orlando they had. I mean, he ended up with 30 points in that game because he did all of his damage at the free throw line. That's what good players do. They find other ways to score. But he was 8 for 24 in that game. I mean, these are just empty possessions offensively, and the team ends up losing. Again, last night, just didn't have it offensively.
And they won.
Did, barely.
But they won.
But that is not the recipe for winning basketball overall.
No, I get
if
it.
his shot selection is this off and him at the end of the games is that bad, the Knicks are going to lose more of those games than they're going to win.
I don't know about that. I mean, I'll take Randall, what he said in overtime against the Boston Celtics, realized that Evan Fournier was feeling it, and he said, I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure to get Evan Fournier the basketball. I look at the box score last night. Julius Randle attempted 11 shots over the course of that game last night. There were 3 other Knicks that attempted more shots. There were 3 other Knicks, and they still won the basketball game. There were 3 other Knicks that attempted more shots from the field over the course of that 48 minutes of basketball in Chicago than Julius Randle did, and the Knicks won. And the Knicks were up by 13 with 3 minutes to go. Yes, I understand they did not execute down the stretch and made you sweat, but they still held on to the victory. They are a significantly better offensive team this year than they were a year ago.
Well, that I'm not arguing.
I don't think there's any question about it. So with that being said, with them being a better offensive team, Maggie, well, then they've got more offensive options. And if you've got more offensive options, and we know that Julius Randle, as much as I love him, as Knicks fans love him, foundation piece for the team, it's so likable. How do you not like Julius Randle and the way that he carries and conducts himself and wanted to be the guy here in New York and clearly is the most popular Knick on this team? He can look around that locker room and say, I've got other guys that can get the job done. I don't have to go for 28 to 35 a night for us to have a shot, for us to have a lead in the fourth quarter. Fournier can get hot. R.J. Barrett can get hot. Kemba Walker can provide the offense. Questions about Walker's defense. Derrick Rose coming off the bench. There are other things. Emmanuel Quickley, who has yet to get going this year, is another guy to throw into the mix as well. Obi Toppin's game has evolved year number 2. That would be the only thing. I'd come out of last night's game and I'd say, you know what? The Knicks won. Yes, it wasn't pretty late, but it's a positive sign for me. Even though they have things that they need to clean up, late game situations, there's no question about it. They're unquestionable that they need to clean those things up. For Randle, though, he can impact the game. Rebound to the basketball. He can impact the game distributing the basketball. He does not need to be the offensive force he was a year ago to be the impactful Knick, and he can be just as impactful as other guys he can lean on offensively.
Okay, but there's another part of this which I thought was disappointing for Randle last night, and this is not an indictment on Randle by any stretch, but I'm watching him last night, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, you're letting a lead slip away here. Doesn't at some point your best player also have to impact the game in a positive way? And Julius Randle, unfortunately, was not a positive in the last 5 minutes of that game. He scored 4 points in the last 2 minutes of the game, missed the free throws, which would have made this a little bit more comfortable when it had to come down to that last, good defensive effort by R.J. Barrett. I'll agree with you there on Rose.
And Mitchell Robinson on the double.
I know, but Mitchell Robinson, I'm holding my breath when he turns his ankle and then is coming back into that game literally limping. And it's like,
he blew his sneaker.
No, but he and rolled the ankle where he's coming back on the floor limping like it's Willis Reed coming back onto the Garden floor. We're 5 games into the season. So that part of it is always just makes you hold your breath. And I'm looking at Randle in crunch time, and he just wasn't a factor. And so I do think that Randle still needs to lead the way. This is not me dissing Randle. This is me expecting just as much from him this year as a year ago, even when you have more offensive weapons. This team goes as Julius Randle goes.
Want to hear from you. 877-337-6666. Union, New Jersey we go. It's John. What's going on, Johnny?
Good morning, Mark.
What's up, John?
I understand your comment on that game last night with Randle. He doesn't have to be the guy that has to score, but who's going to tell him that?
What do you mean? Last night he attempted 11 shots. I understand that he's going to be a guy that Tom Thibodeau is going to still lean on, but Julius Randle has also shown you as a Knick that he's willing to share the basketball. Nearly had a triple-double last night.
Okay, that's good, but I'm saying, what you're saying is that he doesn't have to be the guy that has to that do all the scoring, but who's going to tell him that?
Well, I don't think it's someone needs to. I think, Thibodeau was still running plays for him, and then he's doing a nice job. He knew he didn't have it offensively last night, but how are you impacting the game in those last 3 minutes? And, Randle, who has been excellent. Like, I give Randle the credit for turning this Knicks team around and the franchise around. We're talking about last night's game. We're looking at that crunch time minutes when you let the lead slip away, and it wasn't Randle. If Randle had been playing better, this wouldn't have gotten even close to the heart-stopping, in some ways heart-wrenching end of that game. And they win.
Yeah, if he was playing better, they would have won by more than 13.
That's what I'm saying. And that's my point, is that if he's on, That game's the 76ers game, which is they have a double-digit lead, and they just put it away.
Only scored 16 in that game.
Okay.
Randall.
Shot selection.
I only scored 16 in
But
that
how
game.
efficient was it?
Did not lead the Knicks in scoring. They had 5 guys that scored in double figures that night in that blowout victory over the Philadelphia 76ers. That's just my point.
But he was 7 for 18 on that one.
It's not a matter of not being the guy that Tom Thibodeau is going to lean on. And not necessarily that he's not going to be the guy they're going to go to in crunch time. Of course, I understand that. And we all have the understanding. It's not like they're going to run set plays for Evan Fournier like the Pacers used to do for Reggie Miller. My whole thing is that for the Knicks, they're a 4-1 basketball team. They have played really good. They had a bad loss against Orlando at home in which they played a terrible fourth quarter, and Ross outscored the entire Knicks team by dropping in 22 in that fourth quarter. But there are other ways for this Knicks team to win this year offensively without Randall being that guy and having to carry the offensive burden every single night. And I think you've seen it here through the first 5 games where that is indeed the case, where he can impact the games in a lot of different ways, and it's a credit to him.
Oh, I'm not saying he doesn't,
as Tom Thibodeau said after the game last night, he was unbelievable on the glass. He was unbelievable, distributing the basketball. He is hungrier this year than he was a year ago to continue to go out there and prove himself. I'm not telling you that he's not the heartbeat to this team, but now he can look around. As we've all seen it, there's significantly more offensive team this year than they were a year ago. They've got offensive options. I didn't speak properly there. They've got offensive options this year as compared to a year ago, and that's unquestioned.
No, I get it, but to the point of this would have been, if Randall is playing a better game offensively, this game doesn't get to where it did, which was one that on another night the Knicks would lose that game, no doubt about it. Let's go to Alon. He's in Highland Park. Alon,
hey, guys.
You?
Happy Halloween, Mark and Maggie, if you celebrate.
What's up, Alon? Yes.
Why wouldn't I celebrate?
Halloween?
I've been around. And I tried to get through to you the day after the Yankees got eliminated, but I was on hold for too long. I couldn't wait.
So that was a busy day.
About the Knicks, you got to be worried about closing time, and I would keep an eye on Portland and Cleveland and root against them, because I still think we're a closer away from being a real contender, like a Damian Lillard. And Maggie, you were with Sal, and I was trying to say that I don't think Colin Sexton is better than Damian Lillard. I would never say that. What I was trying to say is I was hoping we could get Sexton without giving up Barrett. Like you guys said, you would have to give up Barrett to get Damian Lillard.
This was the day that you were on vacation when Kemba Walker
got.
got.
This is going back to the summer?
When Kemba signed with the Knicks.
Oh, gotcha.
Sal was with me that day.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I got a little confused there.
Yeah. That was a deep cut.
So Elon, you're listening to the radio. You can't. It's too early in the show. I mean, it really is.
Why wasn't Rose on the floor in crunch time last night?
You're going all the way back to a summertime conversation and defending your point about Colin Sexton.
Yeah.
That, as Maggie said, that's a deep cut. That really is.
It was a B-side.
Staten Island we go. It's John. What's going on, John?
Hey, how you doing? I just wanted to comment on what Maggie was saying. I think what you were looking to say is he needs to be the voice of the team. He's the heart of the team, but he has to be like the Kobe, the Michael, the guy who picks everyone up and says, hey, we're losing. We're about to lose this game. You got to wake up. Let's go. Like, that's what he has to be.
I think Randall is that guy. It's just also showing it. And listen, this is we're talking about last night's game. I'm not making a comment here on Julius Randle's career and how he's turned it on and how he's turned it around. I love what Randle has done. I'm not trying to get after Randle, but last night in crunch time, he didn't have it. He wasn't there. I'm missing those free throws is unforgivable for a guy who's an all-star and an all-NBA second team.
No, you got to make those free throws. And he wasn't even close. It was, as Clyde said on the broadcast, he was kind of wishing and hoping that they would go in.
I know. The Knicks are lucky they escaped with that win.
No doubt. And it's a credit to Barrett defensively, having understanding what DeMar DeRozan was going to look to try and do. And he said after the game, grew up a huge DeRozan fan. The mayor of Toronto and everything, and seen him make that similar move time and time again. It's also a credit to Mitchell Robinson having an understanding, and right before that play, you saw them kind of flash to the Knick huddle, and Thibodeau called over Mitchell Robinson and clearly went over what they wanted to do defensively. So you had DeRozan trying to make a game-winning shot not only over Barrett, who was right in them, and good job that he didn't lean in to DeMar DeRozan, but you also had a guy that's nearly 7 feet tall with a huge wingspan, and he's trying to make it over Mitchell Robinson as well. So that's great team defense, understanding the moment. Robinson leaving his guy, knowing that DeRozan's going to take that shot and making it that much more difficult, and he goes out there and throws up the air ball. Who do you think treated for the dinner last night at Tao? Is that one where Thibodeau pays, or do you think it's Randall?
Randall just got paid that big contract.
Do you think it's the player? Like, do you think it's not quickly, obviously? Fournier just got a huge contract, nothing to the level that Julius got. Do you think Thibodeau is doing that, or do you think Randall's saying, you know what, guys, I got it. I just got paid. We all love our coach. Let's take care of him.
If I were Thibodeau, I would pick up the tab because I'd be like, some of my end of game stuff, maybe I should grab this one.
Do they? Okay.
Randall probably felt, I bet knowing Julius, we don't know Julius, but, kind of understanding what he's like, I bet he felt so bad about missing those free throws. I bet Randall paid. Maybe he pays anyway because he got the big contract, but I bet he felt so bad about the end of that game. It was a pick up the check, guilty, my bad.
And I don't even think he gave an opportunity. I think he did one of those hand the credit card off right to the maitre d'.
I bet he
said,
did
I got
too.
dinner. Dinner's on me.
Watch, they left quickly with it.
Oh, no.
Rookie hazing.